In one of my videos, I said I've never played a Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi game. Well, I lied. Sort of. I kind of forgot that I played and owned one for quite some time. It was like this game was buried in the subconscious of my mind and lost to the sands of time. But I got quite nostalgic for my Xbox 360 and I got a new capture card. And I decided to boot it up for the one time to be met with some of the first digital games I've ever downloaded. One of them was a game ridiculed by most, the butt of everyone's joke. In a game I completely forgot I owned. That game is Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi. So the question or query today is, why did I forget this game existed? Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi was developed by Spike for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, with a release in October 2011 in the US and Europe, while the Japanese version was released in December of that same year. But this wouldn't be the time I would get the game, let alone know it existed. I would get it a few years later along with Dragon Ball Z Budokai HD Collection. I bought Ultimate Tenkaichi on sale for $9.89. Why do I remember the price of a game I bought on sale over 10 years ago after saying I didn't remember playing this game? Well, I learned over the years that traumatic events tend to get buried in the subconscious of people's minds, especially when they want to forget something that happened to them. However, that doesn't mean those memories necessarily go away. It just means the experience was so horrible that they unwillingly forgot about it. So when a trigger is introduced into the equation, memories begin to resurface. One of those triggers for me was opening Hero Mode. Hero Mode is one of the 5 available modes in Ultimate Tenkaichi. This mode allows you to create your own character with an accompanying story. The story follows the hero, a Saiyan of unknown origin trying to restore the world from chaos. Chaos caused by a wish from a mysterious assailant. So the hero sets out to find the Dragon Balls while fighting enemies and other opponents from the Dragon Ball universe. Hero Mode is what I consider the meat and potatoes of this game, not only because of the original story, but due to the character creation itself. However, the character creation is one of the most limited character creators I've ever encountered in a game. You are only allowed to create 3 different types of characters, all of which are Saiyans. While I don't think it was the right choice, I do understand that the hero character being a Saiyan was integral to the story. You can choose between a standard type, a light type, and a heavy type. The light type specializes in range and ki blast moves, so it's mostly limited to ki blast moves. Heavy types take advantage of melee moves, but the difference is somewhat null and void due to the standard type. From what I can see, the standard type can do everything the others can do without being limited to a set of moves. Unfortunately, you can't change the body type except for these 3, meaning you can't change the different sizes to make them as short as possible or tall as possible. You can't make them bigger or skinnier. You're stuck to these 3 different body types of a child, a heavier person, and just like a medium-sized person. Not only that, the hairstyles are also kind of limited, at least at the beginning of the game. Honestly, it seems like they wanted to make one Saiyan type but split it up to appear to have more depth than it actually does. But I can say that they did want you to explore the world, as they give you an incentive to do so. Traveling in hero mode is similar to that of Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3. You take control of a character you created and fly across a map to different story missions and miscellaneous fights to acquire skills for your Saiyan. This applies to the regular story mode as well. In story mode, you pretty much follow the Dragon Ball Z storyline along with the GT story and several of the movies. It's pretty standard for Dragon Ball games based on the official media to do this, so I can't give them credit for doing this. However, I can give them credit for one thing, and possibly the only thing that it did right with this game, and that is the graphics and the art style. Even after over a decade has passed, this game is still one of the better looking Dragon Ball games to date. It was built on the engine that Spike had used to make Dragon Ball Z Rage and Blast, and those games are very pretty as well, especially for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games. But pretty graphics can't make up for the other downfalls of this game. While the story mode allows you to explore the limited world, the way it is structured takes the wind out of its sails. You just travel to each location to fight an enemy while throwing in a giant boss here and there, and those were so repetitive that it became a chore to play after a while. The giant boss battle consists of dodging attacks that the opponent throws at you while throwing ki blasts. Then they will throw out an attack that will temporarily immobilize them, and it allows you to use your combos to attack. Once the boss loses a certain amount of health, you go into a QTE sequence that transitions to the next portion of the battle. This is cool and all, but after doing it every other mission, it gets boring and unintuitive. Fortunately, the game has 3 additional modes to stave off the boredom that hero mode and story mode bring. That's what I would say if they were actually worth it. The other 3 modes are comprised of a World Tournament mode, Online mode, and Training mode. World Tournament mode allows you to fight up to 16 characters in a single elimination style tournament. It's nothing special, but it's there, especially if you don't want to fight online. And like most of these anime games, the online is trash. Granted, the last and only time I played online with this game was over a decade ago, so you could take that with a grain of salt. And of course, the game has a training mode. It's a fighting game, so it needs one, right? You can't see me right now, but I'm making air quotes when I say fighting game, because while this game is described as one, it's so far from it compared to any other arena fighter even. Have you ever cooked dinner, made food preparations of any kind? Have you ever flipped a coin? Well, imagine that after setting your plate and getting ready to eat, you have to flip a coin on whether or not you will eat your food or throw it in the trash. That's what it's like playing Ultimate Tenkaichi. When you land a hit, or if you are hit, everything is literally a game of rock, paper, scissors with the opponent. This is because you will get a quick time event after every hit. The game will ask you and your opponent to choose between a light attack or a heavy attack. If you choose right, the combo will continue, and if you choose wrong, you'll get set back to neutral. However, this isn't the only way you have to guess. In this game, there are 2 ranges you can attack from. A melee range where you can guard and attack with the light and heavy attack button, and a key blast range where you use the same buttons you used in melee to throw key blast. Each state is determined by your proximity to the opponent. You start at a melee range once the match begins, and certain combo choices, which are all decided with a directional input and a melee button by the way, will place you in one of those ranges. Outside of guessing, the combo system is just horrible. All you do is literally press one button. I know people have gripes with stuff like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm and whatever, and even I have some problems with those games, but at least you have to press more than one button in those games. This game is literally pressing one button to get a combo, and then the combo that you get is literally the same for almost every character in the game. You do a flurry of light attacks, they all end in a rush punch move thing. The filler in the inside is different. Not really. It's literally all the same. It doesn't matter which button you press, at least from the characters that I play. You do the strong attack, you knock them up, you knock them down, doesn't matter. It all looks the same. Honestly, that's quite sad, even for an arena fighter. There's no freedom to actually do what you want to do in this game that has 3D movement. And even then, the 3D movement is actually very limited. There are also 2 different types of supers in the game. This is where the second guess comes in. The supers can be used at any range but are beneficial when used in the correct area. However, when they are not, you have to guess again. This time, you guess by choosing between left or right on the analog stick. When it comes to the supers, I'm okay with this because as far as I know, supers are indeed unblockable. So when they are used at the correct range, you get free damage. There is a way to mitigate or outright not take the damage from the supers. Like most Dragon Ball games, you can key charge. Ultimate Tenkaichi is no exception to the key charge rule. Key charging gives you a defensive option against these supers. With these options, you can choose to defend, evade, or beam struggle, the latter 2 which are QTE sequences. You can only use each one based on the amount of ki you've accumulated. You can also charge ki to the maximum level to get a sort of awakening state where you could deal more damage, but it kind of seems useless because it leaves you vulnerable to unmitigated damage. To build super gauge, or spirit gauge is what they call it in this game, you have to get hits or take damage. It really doesn't take that long to build either. The reason being is probably due to the ultimate attack you gain access to once you've sustained enough damage. These ultimate attacks do a lot of damage, and the main reason you would keep your key charge defensive abilities around. All these decisions, in my opinion, are horrible design choices. Who thought that making the person who gets a hit guess on their turn was a good idea? It's not like a combo breaker that's in Killer Instinct or Mortal Kombat. Though Ultimate Tenkaichi does have one by mashing the face buttons, it's pure guess with little to no counterplay. It's the same thing with supers. Making them basically unblockable was a little foolish, but after revisiting the game, pretty much the whole thing is foolish. Revisiting Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi made me remember why I repressed the memories of ever owning and playing this game. While there are things I do like about the game, such as the graphics and parts of the overworld, the overall package leaves a lot to be desired. If I were to make a tier list of every Dragon Ball game I've ever played, granted I haven't played all of them, but this one would sit all the way to the bottom. Let's say if a tier list is like from S, A, B, C, D, or even F tier, I would make a new category, make it say U, the letter you for ugly, uninspiring, and sometimes outright unplayable, I will put this game right there. I recently did a mini retrospective on Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, and one of my biggest complaints was the Dragon Breath system. It's like this game took that poorly implemented system, in my opinion, and scattered it across every aspect of the combat of this game. On top of that, the combat itself is just mashing one button until a rock, paper, scissors moment inevitably comes up. I like fighting games. In a lot of parts, you have to guess, but not this much. Not after every hit. Not on hit. There's some stability in most fighting games, rock, paper, scissors situations, but not this game. Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi also kind of put me off of the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series in general. This was my first foray into this series, so I kind of never picked up any of the other games because of this one. And after spending time with the game, I probably won't touch it again for a while or ever again. And honestly, it kind of makes me not want to play the rest of the Budokai Tenkaichi series, even though I guess people don't consider it part of it, even though it's in the name and it's made by the same developers. But give it a few months and I probably would have forgotten about Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi once more, and maybe I'll give the other Budokai Tenkaichi games a try.
Is this the end?